Good morning, everyone in the room and everyone remote. We're taking one more minute to let some folks get a seat and we'll get started. Sorry we're a couple minutes late, but this is always a tough one on Monday mornings. So thanks everyone for coming out. I know we have several folks that are online on Blue Jeans, so thanks for dialing in. If you have any problems in hearing me, please send a comment and we'll have Stephanie or Miles that are monitoring for us um, help work with that problem. We are going to also use, when we get to the unique names project later, we're going to be working with you remotely as a separate table. So are we good to start? I think I'm going to go ahead and start with introductions, just so in case a couple other folks walk in the room later. Colleen McCormick from the ITS Customer Relations team. And I think I'll just pass the mic around, and we're going to have two things on our agenda today. Hold on a second. We're going to have Bob Jones talk about my workspace service strategy, and then we have several members from our enterprise identity and access management team talking about some unique name options, and that's where we really are looking to get a lot of input from the folks in the room and the folks online. So let me pass the mic to Eric.
Yep. Eric Hoffer, School of Information.
Bob Jones, ITS.
Jerome Rourke, School of Social Work.
Mo Deraisa, School for Environment and Sustainability.
Osmont Nori, ICPSR.
Andy Palms, ITS.
Steve Matson, College of Engineering.
Cassandra Callahan, School of Dentistry.
Kenneth Nelson, School of Nursing.
John Turner, Museum of Art.
Renee Dario, ITS.
Jessica Rohr, ITS.
Ron Lovelace, Facilities and Operations.
Sean DeWolf, School of Kinesiology.
Kurt Smitka, Office of Research.
Lyle Whitney, Law School.
Blood Wilbert, School of Public Health.
Stephanie Horvath, ITS.
Lorraine Curry, University Audits.
Bill Manspeaker, Taubman College.
Svetlicic, ITS.
Ed Thierbach, ITS.
Cal Kozad, ITS.
And I'm going to ask, where's Kyle? Are you on the Blue Jeans? Can you read out for us who do we have online? I know that I'm expecting a whole group from our friends in Flint who thanks for joining us. I know it's a long drive down, but we definitely want to hear from you on the Unique Name Project. So Kyle, you want to read out who's online that we can know of?
Bonnie, Cheryl Subcow, Eric Coos, Lisa Harris, Marcy Brighton, Stephanie, Steve, Victor Wong, and Zach Broman.
Okay, so thanks to all of you folks for joining. Again, if any of you are ever having any audio problems, please identify that now, and one of us will try to take care of that. Otherwise, I'm going to turn this over to Bob Jones and talk about my workspace service strategy. There's a clicker here.
So since we last spoke, the My Workspace band has been on sort of a whirlwind tour. I think we've had about 70 gigs in the last 2 months, and it's been talking with you. So presented our sea change, which is our service strategy, to the IT Council and unit reps and My Workspace Advisory, the big bag, and I know Marcy's online and setting up the small bag, and countless meetings to talk about what we're doing. But before I talk about where we're at, I want to talk about why I'm actually here and remind everybody. So again, in 2012, Accenture came and presented an IT strategy that was purported to save tens of millions of dollars, and it was cost savings, and it said that if the central IT provider provided a bunch of check. Let me just have that mic. So really, the goal of this next gen Accenture business plan was twofold. It was cost savings, and it was to take the commodity, the mainstream tech, and the central provider would offer it at scale, so units could focus on differentiating tech. And My Workspace was a part of that. So at this point, it's no secret that there were some assumptions that didn't come to fruition with the My Workspace service. So when I took this role in 2015, I had previously spoken to you about building the budget from the bottom up. So the service was released in 2013, and again, I'm telling you, in 2015 we built the budget, and at that point, sort of made this discovery that the service at that point was operating at a $4.3 million deficit, and that was structural. So that was a major problem. And at that point, we began to investigate why that happened and where the service was spending its money. And I have talked to you before about ServiceNow being our service management tool and taking the data in that tool and tuning it to find out where we were spending our money. And that's where we learned things like neighborhood IT was closing 75% of our tickets, and of the 75%, 25% related to software. And we learned that For Help was closing 12% of all the tickets sent or escalated to For Help or of those that called for help. So we did something about it, and that's where we released Software Self-Service. And Software Self-Service, as I stand before you today, it's over 4,000 software titles have been installed by our customers, and that's a really big deal because we saved about 10,000 people years a month of time by empowering our customers to install titles themselves. And these titles right now are free titles that we have packaged. And if you're an ITAM customer, all your ITAM titles or most of your ITAM titles are available to be installed self-service. So from the time that it previously took somebody to request a title, they can actually just install the title. So that was a really big opportunity for us to save money. And the other really big opportunity for us to save money was around our frontline team. So I had said that For Help was closing 12% of the tickets. That was really no fault of For Help. If you have in a complex desktop service, it takes years of experience to be really good at closing tickets. And I know you've run desktop support. It takes years. So we started taking our neighborhood IT staff and putting them on the phones. And when neighborhood IT staff answers phones in the service center, they can close over 50% of the tickets. So that's a really big deal. So in the last 2 years, I'm really, really proud to tell you that we've taken the deficit from 4.3 million structurally, and when I submitted the budget for FY18, it was down to 2.5. We've done so without decreasing service levels, and in fact, we've increased service levels. So I think that's a really big accomplishment, but we can't stand too proud when I'm telling you we have a $2.5 million structural deficit. So in analyzing what to do and how to fix this deficit, there was no silver bullet. Cost savings are certainly a part of it, but we've also talked about cost shift. We've talked about being more entrepreneurial, and we've been pretty transparent that in FY19, we're going to increase the cost of the service. But first, we do believe, and I believe that I can cut up to another $500K in FY18. One big area that's going to contribute to that is our high watermark of hardware models that we supported was over 180, and that's incredible. That is really, really difficult to support over 180 different models because you're managing a bunch of complex drivers, and all of the changes that you're making are really complex. So we've narrowed that fleet to an approved model line, and we're starting to see less complexity when we're managing tickets as a result. So we're going to continue in the service to take advantage of attrition, and attrition and underfilling is a lot of where we found money. So staff leave and we don't replace them because the total number of tickets that we have to support gets smaller because we're doing things like automating and taking advantage of workflows, and it's been quite successful. So the cost shift part of it is really important. So when the service was created, network and security were put into the service but never fully costed. And the reason that they were put into the service bundle is because in 2012, it was believed that every single unit on campus, minus the health system, would consume My Workspace. Therefore, security would be this sort of ubiquitous blanket that would serve the entire university, and network, the in-building network service agreement was thought of the same way, but they were never fully costed into this $1,000 rate. So We are shifting the expense of those two services beginning FY19. And for us, that's about $1.1 million in expense. That doesn't believe My Workspace will be less secure in FY19. We will still be the standard in university security. The expense is shifting. Does that make sense? I see some raised eyebrows, so let's talk about that if there are any questions at all. Thank you.
Lorraine's asking shifting to where?
Lorraine Curry asked shifting to where, and that's the right question. So
Those stinking auditors always
Yeah.
want to know where the money is.
right now, Andy and Saul are looking at the capabilities of both. So the in-building network service agreement, we'll start with that. And Andy, you can correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but you're looking at things like, hey, should that also include life cycle of switches and access points? Because as of today, units pay for those costs. So strategically looking at the service, looking at the cost drivers for the service, and looking at the funding model for the service. So where they shift, where the cost shift is still being discussed, but I would expect in the near term, Andy, you'll be talking with campus about what that means, and I expect Saul to do the same from a security perspective. Did I mischaracterize anything?
Okay. Can you hear me? Is this working now? So previous to My Workspace, ITS had an in-building network maintenance service, and it was chosen or not by local units, and that service included things like break fix, repair, updating of the switches and so forth. It did not include upgrades like hardware upgrades, but it included software upgrades to switches and so forth. So that's a service that we had provided for a good long time. And that was the service that had substantially shifted over into my workspace. As Bob is saying, the intent is to actually pull that back out and make that a separate service again. So what you should expect to see from me, from ITS, I expect at this point in the September timeframe is that we would be back estimating or providing each unit with an estimate of what that would cost in fiscal year 19. Now, what he's also implying is that we intend to actually provide an additional view of the service, which is that if a unit wanted to include hardware upgrades as well, we'd provide an estimate for that. But the core piece of it is just that, as Bob is saying, the in-building maintenance had shifted over, and now it's going to shift back. So that's one. Two is the security piece. And as Bob said, I'm still talking with Saul about this, exactly how it would occur. But my expectation is that my workspace security component would actually end up being allocated to campus units, probably the exact same units that we provide service to at the backbone network. We'd probably allocate that to those same units. I'm not committing to this because we have to work it out, but my expectation is we would allocate it by a head count model in much the same way that we allocate the backbone network service or to a degree, the internet service. And again, I would expect those estimates of what the cost would be per unit to be available in the September timeframe. Yeah. The question is this targeting not just the My Workspace units, but the entire campus? So just to be clear, we're talking about the entire University of Michigan Ann Arbor campus minus Michigan Medicine. So the short answer is probably yes, but I mean the intent is that the security piece is something that does blanket the campus, other than Michigan Medicine, who handles it in a different way. Yeah.
Second question. For security, so certain pieces of the security are currently common good, like doing risk assessments. Will they remain common good, or will they now have a charge?
Short answer is I don't know that. That's more in Saul's hands at this point. Really, right now we're talking about the My Workspace component of it. But yeah, certainly as you might expect, ITS is reevaluating how we would fund a number of different services. But right now it's about My Workspace. Anything else? Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. So, also taking advantage of one of our strengths, and our strengths is we have some really great products that of which the My Workspace bundle is composed. So, making some of these products available without the necessity to consume the full service, and we're releasing 7 new services. So the first is Izzy as a service. Izzy is our Mac platform, and we are officially releasing Izzy to be consumed by any academic or auxiliary unit. So that does mean that academic and auxiliary units are free to leave the full service and consume the products that make up the full service. We are asking the administrative units to stay in the full service bundle. Are there questions about that? I'll go through each product, but I just want to make sure that academic and auxiliary units can consume the products that make up My Workspace, but we are asking administrative units to stay into the full service. So Izzy as a service, so I will say this, so OFA doesn't get mad at me. These rates are not yet approved. I expect they're going to be approved within the next 2 months, but OFA has not approved the rates. But Izzy, I believe, will be approximately $75 per machine. And Izzy, again, is the Mac management platform, and it would be administered by the units. Izzy for iOS, so we are in the process of integrating Jamf, and Jamf is a Mac management platform into Izzy. And when we do that, we get the ability to take advantage of some of the Jamf functionality, and that will allow us to deliver a managed iOS platform. And that is available for all. And that is coming in around $10 per device. Windows, oh, go ahead, John. Sure.
For administrative units, are they going to get Izzy for iOS because they're already in it?
You will not get it. It's an
Okay.
additional fee, but it's $10 per device because it's not included in the full service. Yes. Annual. Managed Windows service, again, platform as a service. And the managed Windows service is coming in around $118 per device annually. And similar to Izzy, that your unit IT would manage the platform, we would deliver the platform as a service. Mprint is a service. This is a per person, per FTE cost driver. This, I think, is around 25 per FTE, something like that. But again, it's a print platform for you to administer. Direct Access is a service, so this is our always-on Windows VPN solution. This is coming in around $4 per device. And stop me if there are any questions, otherwise I'm going to keep going. Endpoint engineering and consulting as a service. So the My Workspace model isn't a perfect fit for every unit. My Workspace is structured so it charges on a per FTE allocation, and there are units that have 3 FTE and 100 machines. So that model doesn't work. It hasn't really been one size fits all. So by offering endpoint engineering as a service at an hourly rate, our engineers can develop solutions for you, and perhaps you would use the a la carte Windows service as your Windows solution, but we would develop the endpoint solution. Does that make sense? Desktop engineering is a solution. So think of this as, hey, my person's out sick for 6 months, and we need somebody to come backfill. We have scale, and we're all over campus, so you could hire a neighborhood IT staff to come provide desktop engineering for your unit at an hourly rate. So that's the intention here. And really, it's just to be flexible. A lot of this is what you've asked for over the last several years, so we've listened, and we're delivering what you've asked for. So the idea here is flexibility and to deliver services that campus wants. So what's next? So we are going to rebrand the full service, and we're going to rebrand it because of many things. Because when the service was released, those in power told units that you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to do that. And really, my workspace is pretty anchored still to this notion of large-scale rationalization, and I don't think there's a whole lot we can do about it, but rebrand and deliver flexible services that campus is asking for. So that's why we are going to rebrand the full service. I expect that to happen within the next 2 months, and that will be tied to the release of these 7 new services that I talked about. Again, we are releasing these new services once the rates are approved. Rates are not yet approved, but I believe they will be in the next 2-3 months. So I started this out saying that the band has been on tour, and we've had like 70 engagements and presentations, but they've been heavy on the academic and auxiliary side and not as heavy in the administrative side. So in the next 2 months, those that are administrative leaders, I would expect that we're going to meet and we're going to talk in detail about the changes that we're making. So that will be really what I'm doing the next 2 months. Again, I've talked about the in-building network service and the MyWorkspace security service as a cost shift. Beginning FY19, those costs will be shifted out of the full service. And then starting FY19, our rate's going to change. The $1,000, I think, was an approximation made in 2014, but we need to get our revenue in line with our expense. So what is the rate going to change to? I don't exactly know, but I know we've modeled anywhere from $1,025 per FTE to $1,125 per FTE. So since 2014, that's about 0.5% to 2% compound annual growth. So it's not a large increase, but it would certainly get our revenue in line with our expense. So what questions do you have? What comments do you have? What can I clarify?
And if anyone remote has questions, please type those in.
For the 7 services, some of them that we're getting now, so the ones I'm thinking of are Imprint and Direct Access, how does that work with the fee model?
So it's a good question. So nothing will change from an administrative unit perspective. You'll be in the full service, so that won't impact you. Really, the intention there is to take advantage of the additional opportunities that are out there for us. So not every unit consumes MyWorkspace, but some units may just want Imprint. And by us making those products and services available to a broader audience, it decreases the cost per unit for everybody. We have great scale, we have great products, and the engineering team scales really, really well. So if a customer purchased like 2,000 ISI machines, they wanted to use ISI, I don't think it would add very much expense on our side. So the cost per unit goes down for everybody. So really, it's just being flexible, and it's a direct result of listening to what campus has said it wants. What else?
Any other questions? Any remote questions? Last call. We've got one, Stephanie. Hold on a second, bring the microphone back.
What is the timing of having the new full rate and the a la carte rates available, thinking about the budget timeline?
I expect that the a la carte rates will be finalized within the next 2 months. So we're waiting on rate approval. And the full service, I'm very conscious that the budget conversations begin around September. I'm not quite sure when the full service rate will be established, certainly prior to the letter, the rates letter that ITS puts out.
Okay, well, thanks, Bob. If anyone has any additional questions, I'm sure you can email them to Bob at some point, or again, he'll be out doing more roadshow in the future to the administrative units. Thank you very much for that update. And next, we are going to go to our enterprise and access management team. I'm going to start with Svetla Sich, who is the project manager.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Svetla Sich. I'm a senior project manager in ITS, and for the last year or so, I've been the campus program manager for the Enterprise Identity and Access Management Program. How many of you are familiar with it? Probably all of us. Yeah. The priest has made the rounds. So we're actually here today with a number of my colleagues, and I'll introduce them all to specifically focus on the unique name project, which is focused on identifying recommendations for potential changes or updates to the structure or the use of unique names, so we can make sure that in 10 years or so, we still have something that's usable and in line with the technological needs of the university. So I'll go very briefly for those of you who may not have been really involved with the program, to just give you an idea of the projects we have in scope and how they're doing as of this point. And then Ed will go over some of the options we're considering for unique name. The bulk of the time that we have together will be spent on a discussion. We really want to hear from each and every one of you, your comments, concerns, ideas around the options that we're considering. All right, so I'm sure most of you have seen the slide. As you know, the program is a multi-year initiative, and it's actually university-wide. So in addition to all the campus units and Flint and Dearborn, we're also very closely working with Michigan Medicine and our health ITS partners. So this is truly university-wide. We have funding for the first 18 months, and we're 6 months into it. We have 7 total projects, and 5 of them are already in motion. We have 2 left to start. One is actually starting hopefully a little bit later this month, and next one in the fall. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but as you can see, we try to stagger them a little bit. We have a fairly large team, again, encompassing both ITS and HITS resources. So far, things are going well. As I mentioned, we have 5 of the project active. Yes, where do you want me to be? Okay. We have 5 of the projects active. We started off with our social login pilot projects. And right now, they're in the middle of working on 2 pilots. They're working with Alumni Association. I think I saw Regis stop. Hi. Alumni Association and Hati Trust at the library. We have a role and access management project. And I don't know if any of you attended the demos last week. So we're in the process of selecting a vendor for the role and access management software that we're purchasing. Account lifecycle optimization, focusing on some quick wins around creation of accounts as well as decommissioning accounts. And they have 3 waves they're going through. First wave is already complete, and we're in the middle of development for, excuse me, for a second wave. Unique name reevaluation, we'll talk in detail today, but we're wrapping up our current state analysis, and we're currently focusing on options analysis. So based on what we've heard on current state, we're identifying some opportunities for improvement. Identity assurance is a project that started a couple of months ago, and they have their project charge and scope approved, and they're currently going through current state interviews. So they might be reaching out to some of you to talk through the current state of how we make sure that we know who you are and how we prove that you are who you say you are. So that's what we have so far going on. Any questions? Again, I think most of you are familiar with this information. So To get to the important part of our presentation today, unique name options that we want to discuss with you. First, I want to take a moment to introduce the project team. We have Ed Thierbach, who's our campus lead or ITS lead on the project. For most of our projects, we have two leads, one from Health ITS and one from ITS. We have Steve Rothwell, who's our Health ITS representative. So hopefully today he can help us get that input from schools that are using level 2 login. Next, we have Kyle Kozad, who's the business systems analyst on the project. And we have Angela Moore, who's the business analyst on the health ITS side. And we also have our program communication lead, Jessica Rohr, who I think most of you know, who's going to help us moderate some of the discussion today as well. So with that, I want to hand it over to Ed to walk us through the project approach, what we've learned so far, as well as what we're considering.
Thanks very much. Let me occupy each hand here as I. Oh well, there. I'll just break the display here. All right. All right. So I'm on the camera. I'm gonna probably need a hand here, Colleen, with putting this back together since I've now taken apart the presentation. So once this gets back together, I'm going to just spend a couple of minutes talking about the overview of what our unique name reevaluation project is all about, and spend most of the time talking about the options and then our table discussions. If you have any questions about the overview materials as we go through them, we can talk to you about it afterwards. Any person on the team is welcome to, or contact us offline, whatever works. So for the unique name, we were looking at why are we even looking at this? Why are we reevaluating it? And what we've found over the years, and what we've heard from many people over many years of experience with it, over 25 years actually, is that there's challenges from the user side with using name parts, and I'm the 51st Bob Smith who has come to the university and I can't get the name I want, things like that. We'll go into that in more detail. There's administrative challenges involved in changing and working with unique names. And what we're hoping to do is to make the whole process easier, more friendly, more modern, if you will, more in line with expectations of the 21st century as opposed to the latter half of the 20th century. And that was the premise that we've started on when we started this project. Oh, that's so much better. I found the right button. So as Svetla kind of alluded to a minute ago, our project has several phases. We're wrapping up what we call the current state analysis, and that is going out, contacting folks and saying, what is the pain that you're feeling with unique names? What are the problems that you see? What are your faculty, staff, students telling you about this, and what do your staff have to say about it? We're now moving into the option and impact analysis, where we've narrowed down the questions, and we'll see more about that in a minute. So now we're looking at how do we answer those questions? What can we do to make things better without making things worse or making millions of dollars of investment in that? So that's where we're at right now, and we'll be running that basically through the end of the year, including a detailed impact analysis on a few of the options. As you'll see in a minute, we've got about a dozen sub-options to look at. We're not going to go into excruciating detail on every one of them to do our recommendations. So we're going to narrow it down, and what we're doing today is going to play a real key part in helping us narrow that down. So we'll end up with recommendations. We'll socialize that widely, get everybody back in the same rooms we were in before, and then finally go through the approval process, which is going to involve the EIAM program leadership. It's going to involve campus IT leadership. We're still working out a lot of the details of the approval process, but the one thing we want to do with that is make sure that the campus and the university as a whole is represented there. So that is our plan. So in doing our current state analysis, we found that it really boiled down to two issues, two problems that have some sub-problems underneath it. And that's what we're starting to focus on now. And I want to take 5-10 minutes maybe and just go over these in more detail, because these are the things that we're going to be talking about in our table discussions that are going to be coming up in a few minutes. So if you have questions now about what I'm talking about in the next 2 or 3 slides, please just bring them forward now so that we all end up with a common understanding, and that'll make the table discussions go well. I don't always notice hands, although this is a small room, and especially, Flint, I wouldn't notice hands there. So please make sure to just speak out if I don't catch you. So question number 1, or problem number 1, is I can't get the unique name that I want. And that's one that we hear quite a bit, and one that we have to work a lot of incidents and open problems about. A lot of common names. If you've got only 8 characters, you're going to have a limited number of choices available to you to make a name that makes sense. So what can we do about that? We're finding out that the unique name and the name parts link is really because that's your online ID, that's your identity. Email, IM, different ways that you identify yourself within the university and outside of the university. Quite honestly, if I just had a sign-on ID separate from my email identity, nobody would care that I log into my workstation as ZSS056, as long as they could get to me at something approximating my name at umich.edu. So by having an email alias or an identity alias, if you want to think of it that way, you can decouple that function from your unique name. You'll still be able to email, unique name at umich.edu, but this can take some of the pressure off of the fact that your unique name in 8 characters has to represent your name and not represent the other 50 Bob Smiths who came to the university before you. So that's one we're going to really be focusing on today. There's also decreased growth of unique names just to keep the pool as big as possible. And that's using federation, social login, basically other identities in certain cases, so you don't have to consume unique names. And also, there is a fair amount of churn in unique names where just because of the process of onboarding students or other processes, there are unique names that are allocated that nobody ever touches. And if we can identify those and release those back to the pool, that can help a little bit as well. So that's another thing we're exploring. This next one is very interesting, expand unique name structure. Yes, we want to include that in the discussion for completeness. And we know that the quick casual view of that is, well, heck, you give me more characters and I have more choices. And maybe that's true to a point, but I want to be clear that this will only temporarily solve the problem, because after another 50 or 100 Bob Smiths come to the university, the name parts are still going to be scarce. And quite honestly, this strikes fear into the heart of any IT provider on campus who provides a major service, because unique name is baked in so tightly into everything that we do. It's going to take us years to unravel all that and to find every place where 8 characters with no numbers, 3 to 8 characters and no numbers is embedded. But now that I've all discouraged you from that, we want to talk about it, because one of the things we're looking at is cost benefit. Okay, maybe it's going to take 2 years and $1 million to do this, but we get $5 million worth of benefit. I'm clearly making that up, but we want to keep that in play right now. But I really don't want to lead you astray that this is a very heavy option to consider. Improving unique name suggestions, that's actually, you saw the different projects in the EIAM program. There's actually other ones that are working on some of these things, like improving the software that generates suggestions for your unique name, things like that. So that's kind of in process. And everybody's favorite, eliminating unique name choice. Well, if you're tired of hearing the complaints about I can't get the one I want, don't give them a choice. Go the Henry Ford option, any color as long as it's black, right? And there's actually some surprising benefits with that, and there's some not so surprising drawbacks with that. Or, you can turn it around on the other side and say that there's there's really something to be said for you get what you get and you don't throw a fit like we all learned in preschool, and go with that. So I expect that to be a discussion point of note at the table. So moving forward then, the other issue that we're looking at, it's amazing I point up there and it works down here, that changes are complicated. Everybody knows that you're going to have to potentially change your unique name at some point, especially if your unique name is based on your name, because names change for a lot of different reasons. We will always have to be able to support legal name changes, law enforcement requests, privacy requests. There's all sorts of reasons that will never eliminate unique name changes. So what we want to do is make them as easy as possible. And so again, allowing the selection of the email alias means you maybe don't have to change yours as often. Going back to my silly example, if I sign in as ZSS056, if that were my unique name, doesn't matter how many times I change my name, that doesn't have to change. The email alias would change, and we would make sure that was fairly easy. We would discourage change. There's that thing again there, right? Fees, approvals, clear guidelines and policies about changing them. Encouraging people to make better choices when they choose their first unique name. There are some canonical examples out there of people who had fun choosing their unique name before they had to start applying for jobs and post-grads and things like that. And then it suddenly became a little more serious, and here comes the unique name change. Confirm before commit is actually in the pipeline. If somebody can't get their name, they tend to get frustrated and put very unsavory things in for their unique name choice, and then the system would accidentally accept that, and then they'd have to sheepishly call for help and say, can you get me out of this jam? But there's also the idea of when you're going to change a unique name, making it simpler to do. So improving the gears and cogs in the back end so that there's not the manual effort that's required today to get your access right again when you change your unique name. Notifications so that you all have things that you have to do if somebody's unique name changes, so making it easier for you to find out that that has happened rather than subscribing to an email group and ignoring 17 out of every 20 of those. And also providing a history of some kind so that when someone's unique name changes, you know that that's still associated with the same person. And we kind of have that internally, but we don't really make that available externally. So that would be something we can do. So those are the two main issues that we are really going to be talking about today at our tables. Can't get the unique name I want, and it's too complicated to change it. So that's where we're narrowing our focus. There are, if you're interested, you've had the slides shared with you already. I won't really talk through this right now except to say these stories, these use cases sort of underpin what we've been hearing and why we've come up with the options that we have. We have this matrix thing here that we're putting together through the interviews and through feedback here today also of what do you think about these options. So we're sort of keeping a running score of what's the benefit to our users, what's the impact to your department to make the changes, or what's the impact rather to getting toward the goal. Does this really do what we think it's going to do? And what's the effort required to change it? That's like, what is it going to take for us all to implement that? So we have this, it's not in the materials here today because it's ever changing, but we are keeping a kind of a running tally of this to help us narrow down the options we're going to go deep on. And now we're getting to the actual discussions I've been alluding to all morning. What we're going to do is break up into a few different tables here, and we have more physical tables than we have people to person them today. So what we're going to do, we're going to have one table that's sort of the virtual table. So anybody who's online, anybody who's online will be over here at this table, and Kyle's going to captain that table in a moment and have your discussion within Blue Jeans. We're going to have a table that's dedicated to folks who have a close tie with Michigan medicine and as well as the academic side. So those of us who have or had our feet in both camps. So if you've got a level 2 login, or if you manage level 2 logins, or have level 2 logins for your faculty and staff or whatever, health science, life science sort of things, if your email comes to med.umich.edu, I think you can kind of self-select from there if you're close with Michigan Medicine. Please go to that table, and Steve and Angela will be captaining that table. And then the remaining attendees, sit where you like, as long as you like to sit at one of two other tables. And Svetla's going to be at one, and I'm going to be at the other. And so we're going to have to kind of make some super tables here to make that work. And that's okay. It's about time. You've heard us talk all morning. It's about time to get up and move around a little bit. And what we're going to be discussing there's a whole sheet that's available in the email that we sent out. And I don't know, did the hard copies arrive? So we may not have hard copies, but we can deal with it. We've all pretty much got laptops. So we'll be going through those key options and spend about a half hour with it, and then we'll do a quick 5-minute get-together just for next steps, which actually I won't spoil surprise. So with that, let's have everybody shift around a little bit. Steve and Angela, where would you like the level 2 table to be? Who's? Pretty much, all right, well, 2 over there. Okay, where Kenneth and Cassandra are now, and whoever else wants to be over there. So then the other super tables will be maybe over here in this corner and over here in this corner, and we'll just kind of make this area and this area be the 2 other tables, and we'll work from there.
And let me just say, we're going to cut off the recording for the short time while we're going to be doing these table exercises, and we'll pick it up at the end when we're doing a little bit of a readout. So those folks remotely, stand by, and Kyle will be on with you.
We had really good discussion, and I'm hoping we got the same at the other tables. So we'll take our notes, we'll clean them up, and we'll get those back out to you in the next few days. And then we'll take it from there. So as far as next steps, let me just make sure we've covered it. So yeah, so we'll share this back out with you. We would like to use your impact as kind of our guiding direction as to what to do next. So we want to narrow down out of those dozen or so options you saw earlier. We want to narrow it down to a handful that we want to do detailed impact analysis on. And I hope that the discussions today would let us do that. And then we'll be re-engaging again with many of you on the actual impact analysis. Again, we want to make sure we select the options that make the most sense, that get the most value, and at the same time don't cost millions of dollars and are realistic. So thank you for your time today, and I guess we'll be back in touch. Thanks.